Okay, I'm starting recording now.
Oh,
I'm here today with Jason. Hello, Jason,
hello, Phil.
who is an American who's currently in Austria, and I'm an Austrian who's currently in America. So
Bam.
it's the way we do these trade-offs, I think.
Yep, one for one.
One for one. And so you're, what is it, database reliability engineer?
I'm a database reliability engineer, and I am what is called a unicorn.
A unicorn. Aren't we all special unicorns?
Exactly. I'm a special unicorn. Essentially, my job is at a company called Cabify to make sure that developers have what they need to make the correct database choices in
So,
their
like on a
lives.
technical level, so that they can interface with the database correctly, don't make any stupid
Not only
mistakes.
that, also what databases, if if the database that they're using goes haywire, why is it going haywire? How to store different things, and also just generally in approaches. Um, I help people define, event sourcing is a better paradigm for this
Mhm.
application than, you know, um, saving every single journey or something like that.
Sure,
Just,
sure. So just helping them
you know
out and making sure
yeah,
that,
just helping them
yeah,
out,
with your
making sure that
experience.
the
And, mhm.
yeah, sharing the love.
And
And on
what
top
is
of
it?
that,
If the database is fast, everything's fast, or is that your motto?
uh,
Or should that be your motto? If the database fast,
no,
everything's fast.
if your database is reliable, as the name says, and is working within your SLA, because we work with SLAs because we're fancy as shit,
Nice, nice, nice.
then you're happy.
Okay, okay. Well, it sounds good to me. So I prepared a bit of coding today, an exercise that combines sort of two things. First, I want to do something with a database, which you can in the browser, and I even played around with PouchDB, which is kind of like CouchDB only in the browser. When I was trying to import a 500 megabyte CSV file, but that took too long, and so I was like, screw it, I'm doing something else.
Yeah, this is gonna be scary.
No, no, no. This is so what I wanted to do was something with a little bit of console.
I like console.
We're gonna use Node, not much of it, just JavaScript on the server, and we're gonna use Puppeteer. Have you ever done anything with Puppeteer? Do you know what it is?
I have not. I only know Puppet.
Okay, I
Um,
don't think it has anything to do with that. So what?
configuration management.
Yeah. So what it is? Let me just delete most all of this actually.
Get rid of it all.
It's a way to automate. So basically, it's Chrome, so Chromium, the browser engine, in your whatever in your code. So you basically launch Chrome, and it can, for example, go to a website, and then you can do whatever Chrome could do. So it could create
Oh,
a
fancy.
screenshot of it. It can grab data from it. It can go to other pages. So it's sort of like for one thing that I used it for my last job was because we had like 100 of user websites, just to grab a screenshot of every one of those websites. Then we had changes, deploy changes. Then we grabbed those websites again and, for example, compared the screenshots.
Oh, that's cool.
So for stuff like that, it was like 20 lines of a little bit of coding, either in Bash or JavaScript or whatever.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So what we're gonna do is use a little bit of JavaScript. So if I can start typing. So the way to include stuff nowadays in JavaScript is with require. You can load in stuff as modules, and so you don't have to like import libraries any other way. You can sort of do it with that. And the way to then install it. So this, by the way, is Glitch. It's an online editor, and it's pretty cool because they actually give you a little bit of a VM. So I can go, for example, to status, and I can see, okay, we have memory and disk and
Oh, wow.
CPU, and we even have like a terminal, for example. Uh,
Oh.
Running out of space now. You're in the way, man. I can't close it anymore. Okay, here we go.
I'll make myself smaller.
Thank
I'll
you.
hide behind my microphone.
That's what I do every day. Okay, so and the way
Yes.
to install things, if we're using Node, is via this configuration file. I hate it because it's like all sorts of crap in it. But what you basically do is you can say, okay, this is a dependency, And then you can install those dependencies quite easily just by like doing npm install or something. But it does it for us automatically. So right here in the log, it says, okay, it recognized that we changed this file and it downloaded Puppeteer in the background, which is the entirety of Chrome, which is like 60 megabytes large or something.
And essentially, you're not pinning it to a version. You're just...
Exactly. In this case, I said, because I'm just developing willy-nilly on the fly, because we're so cool, I just said, give me the newest shit available. Which,
something that Jason, as a database reliability engineer, would be like,
no! Super dangerous. In a
but
year,
Jason, as a video call
is totally fine with.
Yeah, member, I am not here on business. I'm here to party.
I'm here to party. That's why give us the newest stuff, man. Give it to us now.
By the way, it's a very good beer.
Excellent. So which one do you have?
This is surprisingly from Otterkringe.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
They've been working on some craft beer, and it's a session IPA. And it's called Big Easy.
Big Easy, nice. Well, I have the Heavenly Days from Zilker. Oh, you don't see it because, oh well.
Nope.
My students will see it. Inspiring.
Damn them.
Okay, so all I did right here was I said we want Puppeteer. Then I stuck everything in a function. And this is the cool new JavaScript way of writing functions. Instead of writing function, you write this arrow. And it's so much cooler because it's new. Basically, it's just a function. In this case, it's an async function, which means, I can run in the background. Because here, you can launch everything in the background. So, you can have like however many of these going at the same time as you want to.
So how do you know what your function is called if you don't have like function name?
It doesn't have a name.
Oh man, you're gonna school me in JavaScript now.
No, it doesn't really matter. So we could name it if we wanted to, and it's a fair question. We could name it, but if you have a function that you just only have like one use for example, you give it to someone as a callback, or you call it right away, or then you don't need to give it a name. We could, but we don't need to.
Okay.
And so right here we just sort of define it, and then we call it right away, just to be cool. And also because then we can be asynchronous.
Ooh.
Okay, and technically now, let's see if I made any mistake. We can go to our terminal because this gives us a full terminal. It's called Cherry Tungsten Hen. Nice name.
Yes.
And then I can actually run it with a Node. In this case, it's called server.js. Let's see. It shouldn't give us any output yet, and it should actually never end because we're not ending it, but at least it doesn't give us an error, so that's a start.
Yeah, better than most of the stuff I do.
If we want to end it, we can say browser close at the end. So now we've launched a Puppeteer. In this case, because I'm on glitch, I say no sandbox. Normally it starts like sandbox Chrome in a sandbox in a sandbox. But because we're in glitch, for some reason that sandbox needs to be configured or something, so it's like, no sandbox here because, YOLO. Then we create a new page, which basically opens like a new, not only a new tab, but a new window. And at the end we say it closes. And then we can go to a page, for example. We can say page.go to, and we can enter a URL. And because I know that you like the console, I think you do at least, we can say our URL should be, let me see if I can get this right, process.argv, second parameter, baby.
Ooh.
And fine, let's be really fancy, say if
you're doing defensive programming like an adult.
Fine, I won't do it. Okay, fine.
Let's not get too fancy.
There you go. Are you happy?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's see.
Now, please call it without anything.
Uh-oh.
Bam!
And that's what you get if you don't do defense programming. Okay, but if we enter a URL, like, I don't know, I'm open to suggestions, but I'll start with if I always like page, it'll just run. And because we haven't done anything, it just closes. But we went to that page, and it actually loaded the page and opened the page. And we can, for example, do the following. We can say, we want to get something from the page, and for that you do evaluate, which basically just runs the page. And in here, we can write anything that we could in the browser console.
So can we first get
Sure.
just print out what the HTTP status is? Because, for
Yes.
us low level fogies.
Sure.
We're always like,
You mean like from the request itself?
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've no idea how to do that.
Oops.
Nah, that's totally fine, man. Okay, so we get the
status.
yeah, so we get the response. We haven't actually called it here. We can do that on the second. I'm gonna enhance this when we go to a different page, but we can do it there if you want to. But you normally get like a response object, and on that you can say like, okay, what was the HTTP server and whatever. But right now we're just calling it blind. And the only thing I want to do right here is just get all the links, for example, just because I can. So I can say query select or all a, then return the links. And then I can output all of the links on the page, which is riveting stuff, really.
Riveting.
Riveting. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's see if I made any error. There we go. Whoa, check it out, man. There's a lot of objects that are like...
Sizzle.
Yeah, I think Sizzle is the library or whatever used in the backend to actually...
Let's face it, it's called Sizzle.
Let's make it a little more readable. For that, I'm going to do one weird thing. I'm going to convert this to an actual array because it's not an array because... Don't get me started. But once it's an array, what we can do is we can use map. And map is one of the really cool things I like from functional programming, where you can do something for every element in an array. For example, you could reduce all of them to just one number. So you could, for example, have something that adds them all up to one number. Or you could filter them. Or in this case, we can just map them and say, for every element, so every L, I don't want the full object. I only want L.inner text, for example. So I only want the text of the link.
Is that going to give us the... Okay.
It should, but let's see. Oh, there we go. And that's just the text of all of the links, for example.
Which we didn't even see before.
Exactly, because it was outputting the object here. And normally in the console, the object is pretty cool because you can click on it and open it up. But in this terminal, it's like...
So you would have had to pretty print or something weird like that.
Yeah, I'm sure something like that exists, but So anyway, that's Puppeteer. So that's roughly what it does. It opens a browser, and then you can do browser stuff, which is kind of cool. I kind of like it, but it is what it is. Are you amazed yet?
Cool. I'm fascinated.
Fascinated.
I did not know that that glitch existed, and that cherry tungsten hen was a thing.
It is.
This is so Docker.
Actually, let's... why? Because it might actually be Docker in the background.
I'm quite sure.
Let's actually start a new project.
Okay. Amaze me.
I will amaze you. I will amaze you with a lyrical curly universe by first deleting a bunch of stuff that we don't need.
Who needs a README? Let's explain to your students that documentation is for losers.
Who needs public?
Who need?
Okay, so what we're gonna do here is this is all kind of fine. I'll just leave this much. Okay, so what we're doing now, and we will use Puppeteer again. Actually, let's. So what I want to do now is let's keep going on this one. So what I want to do now is I want to load a file that I prepared beforehand that took me where I did some cool stuff with it. Namely, it is, if I could upload, there we go, a data.json file. Let me just format this file. So I downloaded from IMDB a file that was originally like 100 something megabytes large that contains the ratings of movies.
I like that little effect. That's so pretty.
That's so JavaScript for you.
Yes.
It contains a lot of ratings of movies, and I did all sorts of stuff. I removed most of them. I only left the top 10 movies for each of the ratings. So, for example, for the rating one, I left the first top 10 sorted by numbers of votes.
Oh man, who had that? It would be fancy to know who that is.
I've already checked. There's like this weird Turkish movie. No,
Okay.
Of course I've checked. Come on. It's
I mean,
this weird Turkish movie that apparently is not very funny. According to the comments, he's a very beautiful man, but his humor is very
yes, I admit I
low.
didn't watch this thing. But let me make very, very pointed remark.
Let me show how done.
Ooh, are
So
we going to get all the titles then?
yeah. So we're
Ooh,
gonna.
that'll be fun.
So given a certain rating, let's say for example a rating 6 or 6.1 or something, I want to get a random movie. So a random movie with that, and then I want to grab the poster and the name of the movie.
That's cool.
And that is step one of our project. And with that, we will then do some interesting stuff.
Interesting.
So to get the file, we can use something called file system. It is just fs. Whoop.
I'm sure that there are numerous vulnerabilities in FS.
No, fs is, I mean, perhaps, but fs is actually like pretty much a native, or it's like a core component.
Okay.
So if something's going to be safe, or, if they'd find problems with it, it's probably... Okay, so all of this I'll just comment out for a moment. Nothing with Puppeteer. So to load the file, let's see. This is not something that I...
JavaScript SF vulnerability.
FS.
Understanding file system takeover vulnerabilities and NPM. Oh, yes. Sorry.
So how bad is it, my friend?
Actually, it was quite recently, I think, that that Node had a 0-day in it with this. That's the only reason why I happen to know anything about Node.
There you go.
JavaScript, sorry.
No, that's totally fine. But the funny thing is, of course, that... so we don't need the URL anymore. I mean, this all runs on the server. So, it's like... On the one hand, sure, you can... Well, whatever. Nothing's safe. Whatever.
Okay. Nothing is ever safe.
Conclusion, nothing's safe. So I loaded the file. I did that with a synchronous read, so it shouldn't be in the background because I just want everything to be line by line. I don't want to bother with, background stuff. Then what I did, I parsed it because it's JSON, but, it reads this as like a string, but I want it to be an actual JavaScript object I can work with. And then I said, I just output it in the console. So
that's cool.
This is right here. So then given a certain rating, let's say let rating, I don't know, 7.3 for example.
$3.
$3. 0.3. Yeah. I want to get a random movie. And so the way to do that is...
I meant like $3 as in like enter it via the console, because we're going to be... what we're going to do. We're going to look up all the really horrible movies.
All the really horrible. Okay. So we well, actually that'll be the second part of our example. Don't worry. We're getting to the bad movies, but we'll start out with the good ones, okay?
All right. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine, man. So how to do that? I mean, there's a bunch of ways, but the one is the filter that I mentioned before, which basically goes through every element, and then you can say, should we keep this element or should we drop the element? And
it sounds slow.
I actually benchmarked all of this going through, 1.5 million entries, and like sort and filter, they were like instantaneous, even on my old computer. It was more stuff like actually reading the file and converting it to JSON. That took like 2 seconds or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, once it's in RAM, I think you're going to even an O of n squared or something like that.
Exactly. So right here, all we do is we say if the average rating equals to the rating we defined up here, then it returns true, basically. Otherwise, it returns false. So it's just filtered them out. So if I run this...
in our movies, then we're going to have only those.
Exactly. Fancy. So we only have the 7.3, for example. And then I want to grab a random one of these. I'll just create a new one. Let random movies at the position... math.floor, math.random. You can tell I do this too much.
Way too much. That would have been something Jason would have had to Google.
Oh, I always Google it. I always Google this shit. Like, is there an easier way to do it? It's like, no, it's still this one. So basically, we take math random, which gives us a number between 1 and 0.999. The length of the array, which is 10. And then we floor it because it has to be like an integer. We don't want access the array at like spots 2.3 or something. Let's see. And then if we go random movie, We should only get one, and that should be a different one every time. Well,
Ooh, so fancy.
A random one every time, not necessarily a different one every
I
time.
wonder what the math's random seed is.
You can look it up, but it's as good as any, I suppose. But
JavaScript math random seed.
It's flawed. So if you use it for security things, it's not great. Okay, I
moved my browser way too far over. My neck is hurting now.
How many screens do you have? 3 screens. Do you need those for every database you make faster?
Well, one of them has my database music on it. Mm-hmm. So it's got a Spotify playlist of trucking.
I dig it.
Yep.
Okay, so right here, we grabbed our grab movie data. And now I want to go to IMDB and actually scrape the data from IMDB. So I'm using my Puppeteer again. Deleting this, using my Puppeteer. There, I will go to the URL that we have. So basically, it's the IMDB URL plus this const that we got back. Mm-hmm. So it is title. There we go.
Title. Yep.
Plus random movie dot t const. I didn't call it tconst, by the way. That was the name they used. So I was like,
sure you didn't.
I always wanted that name, but what are you going to do?
Such. Do we actually have to convert this in any way, or
how so? No, this is a string. So this is text. You can tell by so in JavaScript, it doesn't matter if it's single or double. So that's text. These originally were also text, but I converted them to numbers just for easier comparison and whatnot.
See, I'm trying to pay attention and ask informed questions.
No, you're good. Okay, so what I want to do here is grab the page and then say evaluate like we did before. So we wait for the page to finish loading. Then we say once the page is finished loading, we want to run whatever command we want to. Mm-hmm. And that command will be to, number 1, get the poster, which is this right here.
Which is,
let's see. So now my expertise is definitely not Node and Puppeteer or whatever, but I'm really good at like CSS and so this is where it's like
this is where you shine.
So right here, so my vital CSS experience tells me that we grab the class poster and grab the image in there. Damn son, how'd that work?
You know how long it took me to figure that stuff out when I was building my scraper.
So by the way, what you can actually do is you can right click on the element and you can say or was that in Chrome? Because you can there's normally a right click where you can say copy XPath, and that'll just kind of copy. So XPath is something that works in most of these accessing things. It's usually like CSS selector or something. But usually, here we go, copy XPath. Okay. And that'll usually give you whatever you need to copy it. So in this case, it was
oh, wow.
This right here.
Yeah, fancy.
This is probably not the one I'd use, but sometimes XPath can actually be better than that, I guess. Okay, but we said document and query selector, which does nothing else than just grab an element on the page. And I said I want the poster, so the element called IMG, so the image element, that is within an element that has the class poster. It doesn't have to be a direct child, but the first image that is somewhere within a parent element that has the class poster. I want to get the attribute source. So basically just the actual image link.
The space between that poster and image is just like syntactic?
No, that's very important. That actually in the CSS selector, that means it's a child of. So that means image that is within poster.
So you could actually you could have multiple levels that you could and rather than defining, for example, what is it, a nested array or something like that, that would be multi-layered.
Yes,
we can just do with spaces, and it will
exactly. So this is the beauty. Actually, I think that CSS selectors are quite elegant because you can do all sorts of stuff. Like right here, I could say this greater than, which means, you have to learn these things, but it means that poster, the class poster, has to be a direct child of container.
Ah, okay.
So it's not okay for it to be like nested somewhere. It has to be a direct child, otherwise it doesn't apply. And
Okay.
you can do all sorts of stuff. You can say, I mean, CSS selectors are great, but
That's. I mean, I'm. You're showing me things that I did not realize that you could do with what I thought was only
that's
sugar on top of a
no.
pointless browser.
CSS selectors are cool. Most of the time, you don't need them. Don't need anything complicated. Normally, you just have like one element and that's it. But you can do some really cool shit with it. So for the title, we're just going to grab the class title wrapper, and then I'm going to say all of the text within. So there are HTML elements and everything, but I'm just saying I want the entire text. So that will be all of this, including the year. So that's the class. So CSS class with dots, and then I say dot inner text. And then we get title, parsing error, expected token, evaluate. This is a bit of weirdness. So this is me coding loosey-goosey. Normally I do this a bit nicer, but generally when you have this cool way of defining functions, within the curly brackets you actually write the function. Another way to do it is it can also be an object, so it can return an object, but it can't do that if it's multi-line unless you do this, which interprets it in a different way.
Okay, you know what? It's time, Phil. I'm sorry.
Do you have like a whistle that says like it's too...
No, I've got another beer.
Another beer that says we have too many brackets now?
Yes, this is the bracket beer.
Okay, so normally I define the function. I say return object that has... that's
bracket beer.
The classic bracket beer. Okay.
Yeah, this is the classic bracket beer.
So, but if you want to return an object that has multiple lines in it and you want to be really short, then you do this. And I apologize, but that's just the way it is. And whatever, man, you're not my dad. You can do what I want.
Well, honestly, because this is the insanity police.
The insanity police. Okay, let's see if this actually works. I did a lot of coding without testing. So technically it should, so this part we've already had. Testing. So right now it should go to that IMDB page. It should wait to evaluate it, and then it should return, because that's just the way I've written this, return an object that has the image property, which would be this, and the title, which is this.
Who knew that Men in Black, the original one, was actually that bad? I thought it was pretty good.
I'm actually going to do H1. Well, it's got a rating of 7.3. That's not bad.
Not that great.
We're going to get a lot lower, man. Just wait for it.
Oh, yes.
We're going to the bottom of the barrel, and you don't even know why yet.
Scrape.
Okay, so I changed that to actually the H1 within the title wrapper. So the H1 within the title wrapper now, it's like Avengers Age of Ultron gives us that.
That's
okay.
fun.
Are you ready for part 2 of this exercise?
Well, I mean, the fancy thing is that you can see right away that they're using, Amazon as a CDN, so you could immediately start a crawler.
Yes.
That,
this, for example, is like a base 64 converted.
Probably of the name of the movie.
It's more like the ID or something. I actually was looking this up. There's you don't necessarily have to crawl IMDb like we are now. There's some online things, but
okay.
It's like I just grab from IMDb.
So what's the base? What's the base 64 of that? MV5B blah blah blah.
Let's find out with the AL what is it? Base
I don't think
64 to
minus
image.
Base 64 minus D
to image. Oh, I can do that in the console?
Yes.
Fine. So it's base 64 minus D, and then in quotations or?
No, just in one.
Okay. Paste. Oh no.
Yep.
Let's see if I can actually copy this out. So
I think
without
only until the at.
Oh yeah, you're right. Of course. You're used to looking at weird strings like this.
Yep.
Let's see. There we go.
So it's not base 64. It might be something. Basic. I have no such file or directory. It might be a weird base 64.
Yeah, it might be
version.
Well, yeah, it has like JPEG and whatever in it, so maybe it's not the entire string or something.
Some information in there.
That is as we say in the business of teaching people, that is an exercise for you to do at home.
Perfect.
As in, I have no idea what I'm doing. I will continue with something else now. Okay, so now you might wonder, where are we going to get a rating from? Because right now we just hard-coded it, so-called magic number, middle in the code. It's no good, right? So what we're going to do
Never
is
good.
we're going to go to another page. We're going to say page go to, and I'm just going to hard-code the URL in here, and that URL is HTTPS, because we are the future. Let me see if I can get this right. Projects
Ooh, nice.
53038.com. Trump approval.
Oh my god.
Rating promo.html. Let's see if I coded this correctly. Oh no. Let's see.
Trumps, maybe?
I'll just copy from here. Okay, so this is just a short promo. This is the full page, but we're going to grab the number from the promo. This is the full page.
How popular is...
This isn't the fun page. This is actually
Thank you
page.
for opening my eyes. I have learned so much today.
So here, for example, you can see that during the COVID crisis, as in crisis usually do, his approval actually went up from like
it's still below 50.
But now it's gone down. But that's actually, so down here they compare it to different presidents. Let's say here, for example, Bush, 9/11.
George Washington, yeah. I mean, he kicks the English out, and he's like
9/11.
"Ah!"
Right here, 9/11 went up. But for example, Barack Obama towards the end, he was also
George
like
W. Bush, not George Washington.
George Washington. Approval rating of George Washington first.
I was really impressed. They go back a ways.
So anyway,
interesting. Jimmy Carter, for example, was much less popular.
It's quite interesting.
That's fascinating.
But so right here, we're going to grab the number from right here, which is, so the disapproval rating right here, disapprove and value. So, sorry, the approve rating, not the disapproval rating. So that is approve. Okay. So that's the number we're grabbing. And once again, it's a fascinating page. So, did I paste this? Boop. Okay.
There we go.
So we go to the page, then we say, let's approval rating equals await. By the way, all these awaits, it's not normal in JavaScript. The reason I'm writing these, because normally all of these commands, they get sent off into the background and they do their own thing while JavaScript keeps running. But I say, no, wait until this is done, because I want to do everything, So
you want to do it,
right now. Yeah. So it's not, I mean, for a real life example, you'd probably have stuff in the background and you'd buffer it and whatever. But right here, I'm just like, no, wait until it's done. And then, and then we evaluate. And so we return the document query selector. So this time I'm writing it as an actual function. Without the extra braces. Dot end value dot val, and there we get the inner text, I think. Let's see, or inner HTML. I guess it doesn't matter. Let's see if that actually works. So console.log approval rating. Okay.
Yes.
So this should output the approval rating. Boom. Run, my pretty. Yes. So his approval rating is 44.0. We actually wanted in like IMDB, so we want to convert that to 4.4. So what we do is we say, so number one, that's actually a text right now. So so first I want to parse it.
Yep.
I can actually say parse int approval rating. That'll just chop off the last part, because integer, it's always a full number. So right now we've converted it to 44. Then I want to say rating divided equals 10. So then it'll be 4.4.
Cool.
And that should be it, I think.
Divided equal. Oh, today I learned.
Yeah, it looks a bit weird and you hardly ever do it. It's the same thing as plus equals.
Yep.
Let rating. Rating has already been declared.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because I used it
down.
here. Yeah. There we go. Delete everything. Okay, 4.4.
4.4. There we go.
And so now we get a movie that has the rating of 4.4. And the way to see this is, I'm not going to code this live. I've actually prepared this.
Come on.
I can code it live, but you might not be that interested in normal HTML, CSS, and whatever.
I would have no idea what you're doing. For me, that would be magic.
Magic. Right here, I use the magic of HTML and CSS. So
Trump approval movie.
so the Trump approval movie page that I created, this is just the view, right? This is where we input our data into. This is what we'll actually see. So I just created a bunch of CSS, which is just styling, irrelevant really.
Wow.
And right here I say Trump's approval rating, and this is actually an EJS file, which is just it's basically just a template file, JavaScript template file.
Okay.
And so right here is how we insert data. So right here, for example,
it's very Ruby-esque.
yeah, it's all the same. So I just insert from the movie object, I take the property image. Right here, I just input approval rating, and right here, movie.title.
Yep.
And then right here, so what we actually have to do now is to tie this all together, we actually have to output this, but we don't want to output this in the console because only you would ever look at it. But if we want to release this to the world, we have to output it in the browser. So for that, we will use something that I deleted before. It's just the Express framework that was already, it's basically just a simple HTTP server.
Okay.
And for that, we have...
that's actually, you left that in the package.json, right?
Exactly. I left that in there. That's just kind of the default. And what I also want to do is I want to, and this is just because the way I did it, you set the view engine, so basically how it interprets the templates to EJS.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
And
it has to know essentially what it's getting.
Exactly. So I also have to include the EJS here.
And of course, all versions.
Oh, just newest. Give me newest. Yeah, give it to me now. I won't use it.
That's so very, DevOps.
Exactly. And so now something that you might actually relate to is we say app if the person grabs the just HTTP or calls the HTTP, then I create the inline function. So if that is open, then the function. And right here, I actually get the request that I can look at if I want to. We're not, you can look at the request. And we also have the response. And the response is important because on the bottom, we actually render the response. So we say response. And this is just something from Express. We say .render. So as a response, we want to render the following.
The EJS file.
Exactly. In this case, you can just say index. It automatically looks in view folder, though you can change that, of course. Index, it doesn't care about the ending. And then we can pass in the data. So I can say...
movie? Random movie, I think.
Yeah. No, so we actually... I think the way I did it, I had the approval rating, which is rating, and movie is M, I think. So
I think so.
We'll see. So we're passing in this data.
Oh, rating, not approval. Oh, yeah. No, rating. Yep.
Yeah, I called it weirdly. I'm actually going to change this to rating and then change it here to say rating equals. It's no point in having too many.
Ratings.
There we go. Yeah. We're not that loosey-goosey. And the one thing that I deleted, I'm just going to copy it over, is actually listening.
It has to run.
Yep. Yeah. So right here you say our app, which is our HTTP Express server, run on whatever port you have, you get. And if you do that, just this is a callback, just your port is listening on. And then we can actually...
we need something to log.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, what's the point of anything? Then technically we can open it in a new page and it might work. Let me just go to my log here. Log error. Might be an old error though. It's not opening though. Okay, let's see. Can I call
rec method? A few seconds ago, that was kind of where we are.
Yeah, let me just clear it and reload just to make sure. But yeah, probably a typo or something. Okay, yeah, there we go. App server line 50, we have something. Okay, let's see what line 50 is. Down here. App server line 50. Yeah, we don't actually call it like that.
Oh, because it's being called via the...
Yeah, because this is a JavaScript weirdness where before I defined it and called it right away. Right now we're just passing in the function and we don't call the function we get back. It's a bit of weirdness, but... okay, let's see. Status warn, probably using too much CPU or something. All these windows open. What is this? Close everything. Close it all. Okay. Let's see if we get some logs. So this can take a while. Okay, we're getting the logs, which is good from the console.
Lol.
So we got the IMDB, and boom, there we go. Trump's approval rating is.
Oh.
This is actually incorrect at the moment. That might be why we want to save the original.
What do you mean incorrect?
Because its approval rating is in 4.4%, it's actually 44%.
Yes, I see.
Let me just original. It doesn't really matter, but this is a matter of seconds. So we pass in the original rating, and we use this rating internally. So
okay,
there we go. Just a minor thing.
What are you complaining about?
Because I didn't define it.
Yep.
Let, by the way, is the new var. It's the way you define things.
All the cool kids do it.
All the cool kids do it, exactly. And then...
oh, wow.
So today we learned that Trump's approval rating of 44% is the same as the human centipede. Now, some people may wonder why the human centipede had such a low or perhaps high rating, but that's the way it is. I think I actually watched that, but
wow,
it wasn't good. So anyway, that's the way these things are done.
I think you killed it.
I killed
it. There we go. Little man. Little man. Classic Little Man.
Did you see that one?
No.
Me neither.
Goes along the same thing as Kumila Saber Ali Allah Sin. Never seen movie.
Never seen it, but he's very, very beautiful man, therefore. By the way, I can show you, if you're interested, so this was a bit of code that I wrote to convert the ratings. So the ratings from IMDb I got as a TSV, which is a tab. It's sort of like a CSV only with tab. Yep. Yeah, but... and so what I did was first I loaded it in, and I used just a JavaScript library called CSV to JSON. I set the limiter should be tab. And this took about 2 seconds for 1.5 million. Mm-hmm. Then I converted all the numbers because before all the numbers were just strings, but I said, parse float, parse int. So this can be, float and int. That took only like less than a second. Yeah, it took like 100 milliseconds or something. Sorting was like basically imperceptible, 0 milliseconds. It was amazing. Sorting's a bit weird. I got this wrong a couple of times, but what you actually do is in sorting, so basically you call a function on every one of the elements, and that function returns a value, and that value can be either positive or negative. Yes. Saying this should go first or that should go first. Generally, I replied with just the average rating minus the other average rating. So for example, 7 minus 4, that's 3, so that'll be before that. But I said if they're the same, then I sort by number of votes.
Okay.
So if the rating of the two is the same, return number of votes. Otherwise, just sort by rating. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I only got the top 20 movies for every rating. This actually took quite a while because you sort of have to copy all the data. So for every single rating, so from 1.0 to 10.0, so 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, I filtered all of the movies where I said I'm only looking at the movies with this rating. So for example, rating 1.1. Then I only took the first 10 because they were already sorted, and I included them, so I attached them to another array. So basically, I have my original array. I only looked at the rating ones.
Probably taking the most time was probably your
copying. Looking at everything.
I don't know, not the copy.
Well, probably the filtering because I have to do it so often. Yeah, I had to do Anyway, this took 200 milliseconds for every one of the ratings, so that took a couple of seconds overall.
Yeah.
And then I wrote it to the JSON file. So I stringified the JSON because it's JavaScript. I said, give me a string, give me text. And then I just wrote it synchronously to data.json. And this didn't work for the 500 megabyte file because the loading just was taking too long. So then I started going around with reading lines and whatever. But then I was like, screw it. This is good enough.
500 megs.
Yeah, to load that into memory, I probably didn't have enough memory, I'd imagine. I don't know. Weirdly enough, when I was reading, the memory didn't actually go up, so it just hung steady at 4 gig and just didn't go up from there. So I was like, oh, maybe it just doesn't use more memory in the background. Maybe it was swapping, or I don't know.
Oh, if it started swapping, then you're going to be dead anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it was swapping, but who knows? So anyway, so that's the entire example. I'll just change the name so my students can find it, and I'll also post it. I will call it Phil. What do we call this? Trump approval movie. Trump approval movie. There we go.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Trump approval movie. And so I thought, that's the entire example. That's it. Combining Puppeteer with your favorite, American.
I mean, in theory, so I still don't see my my console output of the HTTP gets.
Oh, right. So you mean in the request? Sure.
So yeah, essentially every request that if we perform a request, it would be fun to at least see that it's doing something.
Sure. Let's see. So I'm going to open this. It's probably going to output a lot. But then if I reload, I should at least see the response. So this right here is the request header. The request. This is actually the response object. It's just got a lot. And actually, it's probably easier if we just look at it somewhere else instead of live. So you want the request object.
Actually, I want the server response. Which in your case is the.
Oh, you want to see? Oh, sorry.
I want to.
Okay. You mean like?
Not of your server, but each request that you're doing.
You mean like in the log or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So every request that we're doing to IMDB and to what was it, 538?
We're not logging those. I don't know if they're logged somewhere. I'm sure by default you could probably activate like Puppeteer logging or something. And when you actually call these things, like with the page go to, I mean, this is just a shortcut, right? And right here we just say, you can also say, for example, wait until the page is finished loading, which we kind of do now. But you can do all sorts of stuff with the requests.
I mean, I just think that, because it is asynchronous, it would be cool to get to, at least in your log to say, hey, I am actually doing something.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I can.
So
I'm getting the Trump approval rating, but I'm not getting.
So on the one hand, I probably just console log it, frankly. I just manually write it in here, though I'm sure there's some way to actually go to Puppeteer and say, okay, give me a little bit of debugging output.
Okay.
Because like it's what Puppeteer is built for, right? You basically have a browser that's like, I just haven't done enough with it to actually know any of that.
Oh, it's fine.
I just always use it for these hack together projects where you do something like this. Where on a file request, we grab two other websites, we go into a JSON file live, while the page is loading. So while it's loading, we do all of this. So it takes like seconds for it to actually send a request.
Yeah.
But,
so these are all the things that you learn to do. This is why you have site reliability engineers.
The hacky way, exactly. So anyway, that's the entire example.
That was cool. Thanks.
Can I still ask you some questions, or are you like, screw this, I need more?
Dude, no, I'm always up for questions.
So I have no idea what the students would be interested in because, I know you too well, and but so you for the last 4 years or so, you've worked remotely?
3 years.
3 years. So you've worked remotely first for one company, now for Capify.
Yep.
So and before that, you worked for Runtastic.
Yep. I worked for Runtastic for 5 years during their entire ramp up phase.
Yep. So how do you like working remotely? Because I loved it.
Oh man, I can't go back.
Can't go back.
I can't go back to sitting in an office. For me, working remotely has kind of not necessarily changed how I work, but what is important in my life. It's if I've got stuff going on, I don't have to go to work and get this stuff done. I can just do it whenever.
So are you in Cabify also flexible? Like, if you need to go out for an hour or something?
The only thing that they ask is if you're not going to be in the entire day, hey, at least just let us know.
If you're not going to be
so that people don't
for the entire day. Yeah, that's what was so amazing for me because my last job was also remote. It was such a paradigm shift of, sitting in the office, having
Yep.
the boss behind you, and the boss, you can't have Facebook open too many times when the
Oh,
boss walks by, and you have to leave later than the boss, and that's how the boss knows that everyone's doing work.
yes,
And
because the boss is really knows anything that you're doing.
exactly. And so in remote, suddenly for me, the paradigm shift was how do you grade or judge productivity? And that had to
Oh,
change
that's a
from,
really good question.
Facebook and whatever. It's
Yeah.
suddenly like, how do you see that, like judging product? Because if someone isn't pulling their weight, like you still want to, let go of really
Um.
poor
Oh
performers
yeah.
and
Oh, that
promote
I
good
mean
ones.
that honestly that is a cider question. So
So how do
let's
you,
let's move on to the next.
cheers,
Uh,
cheers. So how do you, how do you all do it at Cabify? How do you see that?
um, it's a lot about hmm, let me.
Because maybe I can bring an example from the job that I had. There, it was very much peer based. So in traditional jobs, it's very much like the boss sort of says, okay, this person has been good, and therefore they get a promotion. In the last, it was much more peer based, where we said this guy's really awesome, and they should be in this role. Or for
Um,
example, this person is really struggling, we should help them, and then see.
so I can see how with small teams or something like that, that would be that's fine. Because everybody knows everybody and stuff like that. But for example, me, I'm a team of one. So that means uh
Exactly. Yeah.
there's only one person doing this job. And sure, a lot of the feedback is um so and so was really happy with the answers that I was giving, or
Hmm.
um I helped them improve the site load time
Hmm.
or the application load
Yep.
time tremendously. Stuff like that. That's a direct feedback in that direction. But a lot of things are we work a lot through issue trackers,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's not necessarily the amount of issues,
Yeah.
but
Also the quality, and you see a trend
yeah,
at some point.
yeah, it's a lot about transparency, being as transparent as possible, and being as, hey, if nobody's going to fault you if you have a bad day or something
Hmm.
like that. It's not about one day's
Yeah, no, no, no,
productivity
exactly.
or
It's not
anything.
about like a reign of terror and fear. It's like
Oh
supposed to be
no,
like
not at
very
all.
positive. And if someone's
Yeah.
struggling, then we try to help them by either changing their
Yes.
role, getting someone to sit down. So what's the problem? Can I help you with this or that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that, but it's very easy to. There's always the connection between how you track performance and then like the terror of, oh no, they're after me.
And I think removing that terror is the key between a remote job and a
Yes.
physical office job,
Yes, I mean it. I feel it can be an either. Like you can have terror and remote jobs, and it's you can have the best job ever on like if you're
which
on site.
is, yes.
But remote sort of forces you to think about these things.
Yeah,
I feel
it
it.
definitely
It
does.
also forces you to change your communication very often. Instead of
Oh,
tapping everyone on the shoulder and saying, "Hey," everything suddenly has to be written down. Everything. And that's great because then
completely.
other people can look, and it's all very yeah.
I mean, one thing, and the company I worked for before was GitLab. Everything was public, so
Yep.
all the issues that we were doing, for example, were public, so that it was like you can't, be passive aggressive and say, "Hey, what the fuck you do on this piece of shit?
Because
Change it
the whole
again,"
world
and
can
stuff
see
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the whole world is seeing this. So your communication was obviously, it was clear, concise. Um, there are some really interesting blogs out there. Basecamp has a great one about
Yep.
how they practice um, clear and concise communication as a remote only team. Pablo, my chef, wrote how we practice communication, and how what the different layers are.
Hmm.
There's direct communication
Yep.
when you have a synchronous call like we're having right now.
Yeah, yeah. For
There's
like certain things, you have that,
Yeah,
but then you have the
there's
asynchronous.
Slack,
Yeah, there's Slack
which
for
is a
everything. You
certain,
can just chat with someone, but you don't have to like catch up to it if you miss
yeah.
it. Like, don't write anything important in there because people will miss it.
And
Yeah.
then you've got issues which are like long term, long lived.
Hmm.
This is kind
You
of
just
this is
document everything.
Yeah.
And yep.
And what we also have, and I like to add this to the twist, is we have Google Docs,
Hmm.
or just a collaborative
Yeah. Yeah.
document
Hmm.
where you work together, especially in the setting of an incident where you've got an
Mm,
outage,
yeah,
or
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got something that we're working on together right now
yeah.
because we're collaborating really closely. um,
That
we
was
can
mhm.
both work on this together. Out of this document,
Yeah.
though, we have to have something that is an output forever.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, so
No,
it's
stuff like
it's
that's
fascinating.
amazing. Like once you're in the job. But I was
Yeah.
thinking, I mean, I don't know how much students, if you've never had a job, it's like, oh,
Mm.
job processes, whatever. But I was thinking, so generally, all of my friends, I definitely recommend to every single one of those to, if they're interested, to get a remote job because it's awesome.
I think you have to see it at least once. It really
But so
changes your prospect.
the question I have is,
Yeah.
number one, how do you get a remote job? Just maybe sure. But number two, should someone who has never had another job before jump into a remote job right away, or do you think they should be in an office first?
Ooh,
I was like,
that's a tough question. So the first one, remote, how to find a remote job, just Google. I mean, there are so many platforms out there. Remoteok.com. Stack Overflow has a huge job portal with where you can say, remote friendly or remote only jobs. They're just find a company that you like and just click on their job page and see, are they offering remote positions, stuff like
yep.
that.
Oh, and the one thing I
um
might want to add there is you're going to get a lot more rejection remote.
oh yeah,
Like
oh yeah.
if you apply in person and you take care to really craft the application well, I don't think I've ever been turned down. But in remote, the chances of you just not even hearing an answer are way higher. So just apply
Yeah.
to like 10 times as many places as you would normally. Just because they get,
uh,
like the job that I got, 500 people applied for it, or
wow.
they got 500 applications for it. Like 80% of those you can throw away because
Yeah,
they're like, they
there's
don't
a lot
even,
of bots out there. Yeah, I mean,
but
there's a lot of.
still, the chances of me getting looked at out of like 200 people is,
Yeah, and it's not about really wowing people. Be honest.
it's totally about
Be
wowing them. No, so the way I see it, if you apply for a job, you wanna make something really interesting that has a lot of character, so that you're actually looked at. You shouldn't lie, you shouldn't
that's true. Yeah.
exaggerate, but just something cool. For example, if you're a front end developer, make something that goes woo.
Yeah. No,
Or for
you're right about that.
example,
And
like what you had,
yeah.
like if you're like working the terminal, put your Lebenslauf, your CV into the terminal. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
That like, oh, that's the guy that did the CV in the terminal.
And
That's like,
and I all of the people that I heard back from when I was applying were like, "Oh yeah, you're the man page guy." And so there is
the CV man
it's
page, of
true.
course. Yeah.
Not necessarily wow them with something
But grab their
buzzy
attention. No, no,
get grab their attention. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the whole job interview. I'm actually going to do next time that I teach with Moni. I'm going to have like an hour's, about salary negotiations and whatever, and
That's
we're
fun.
going to talk about that. But so that's the first part. So apply.
Yeah.
Just look for a remote job. Just apply and don't be
Yeah.
dejected. But do you think that a junior should apply for a remote job?
It's a I think the problem that a junior will have is, if you've never worked before and if you've never really seen the inside of a company, you might be overwhelmed by the fact that nobody is talking to you. You don't know first of all, you don't know probably 90% of the tools that you're using because you learned, you
Yeah.
know, Java at the university and suddenly they're using.
It's not just university. It's like every job has different tools. I
Yeah.
mean, or very often. In your case, not some, but it's like it's always going to be different. That's fine.
And
You don't know anything about the setup. Yeah.
so yeah, I think the key to being a junior and to being remote is be vocal, be really proactive and say, hey, I have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Help!
What did
Help!
that?
They
Yeah,
won't judge you for it. They'll actually see it as something positive. Like
exactly.
if you have a problem, I
Yeah.
always say if you have a problem, first you try to solve it yourself. Then you try to Google a little bit.
But don't
And
spend too much. Don't spend
2 days on
days
a
on it.
trivial thing where someone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, you need to do a comma there because our setup sucks because whatever." It's
Yeah.
like something you
Exactly.
could never know otherwise. People will not judge you harshly. Like try to
No,
fix
not
stuff
at
on
all.
your own and then ask for help. But that applies to like a normal job too. I mean, it's easier there
Yeah.
because the people see you, so there's like, oh, it's stuck on the
I
comma
think the
problem.
feedback loop, yeah, the feedback loop for a junior might be quicker in an on an on-site location kind
Definitely,
of thing.
it's a
But
lot more obvious. Yeah.
yeah, it's more obviously that you're just sitting there going, oh my God, what the fuck is going on? What did I sign up for? And if you're doing that in your cellar, like I am, people aren't going to see you. And if you don't say, hey, I have no idea what's going on, it's going to be really tough for you. So it kind of depends on the person that you are and how comfortable you are with being outgoing and saying, I don't have an answer.
Yeah,
I've noticed that a lot of people that did like really well at school or something like that are
yep.
like, oh fuck, I've got to figure out
I got to
this
figure, and
this
if
on
I
myself.
ask, they'll think poorly of me. It's like, no, no, no.
Yeah,
It's like,
no.
it's part of the communication is because you're not there alone. And part of it, so big part of it is learning from others. And
Oh
obviously,
man,
if you have a trivial
huge.
problem and you ask for the third time, at some point it's going to be annoying. But generally, everyone almost always errs on the side of not communicating and not asking
Yeah.
enough,
Yep.
especially remote. And so I guess I might have one more slightly related question, if you're still fine. Because I know that you came to the computer job world also a bit out of left field. Like your first
Oh
studies
yeah.
were metallurgy, I believe.
Yep.
And so the thing is, so the thing that I'm the class or the Studiengang that I'm teaching is KVM, and the way
Yeah.
that I see it is generally it's a technical studium. So
Yeah.
especially the last couple of years, they're like really good at coding. But the thing is, in Hagenbeck, you have like a spectrum, right? So you have like, I don't know, 10 verschiedene Studiengänge or 5, depending on how you, a bunch. And you
Yeah.
have like the really hardcore technical ones, and then it like sort of moves over. And then somewhere on the further non-technical side, you have MTD, which is like, which I did,
Yeah.
where you have drawing. And then you have KVM even further over. And so I think part of that is the problem that, you're in Hagenbeck and you're sort of on the end of the spectrum. And then there's a whole other issue that
Yeah.
maybe I'll get into with Mooney. It's that they have, which I think is great, a very high female student population. But being
Yes.
a female
Oh man.
coder is sometimes it's well. Anyway, that's another topic. But so to me, even though it's like a technical studium, it's just the comparison within Hagenberg. I don't know this, but I assume that some people might feel that they're not worthy coders or whatever, or they're not maybe technical enough. Or how do you see that?
I think one of the people that I really, really enjoyed working with most at my time in my time that I was working at Runtastic is she was a I have to say woman, not a girl. I'm sorry. She was a female my age.
Yes,
who,
you're a boy. Yes, we know. We're all small children at heart.
who went from a completely different. She I think she did a Lieve as bank something or other, blah blah blah. What do I know? And then as a second second stage in her life, she went and she studied. For her it was software development, sure, but she never had that feeling that she was worthy, because she was one of those dumb kids
Yeah, she didn't
that
study it right, and she came
yeah,
from
she
somewhere
was
else, and she's a woman in a
yeah.
male field on top of that. Yeah,
and I had the best time working with her, because she would approach problems completely different from all of these other people, and all these people that had years of coding experience and stuff like that were stumbling over really simple ideas. And because she wasn't she didn't have this preconceived notion
yeah,
of
yeah.
what coding was supposed to be and what she just she opened her mind, and she was like, please Jason, please to tell, how
Please
does
do
this
tell
work?
how to solve.
And I'm
Please
like, please see me, I have no idea, let us look at it
let
together.
us find out. Yeah,
And it was we had a blast. I mean, that was, and I think that the people that are going to find themselves underrated as developers, they're not doing themselves justice,
yeah,
because they are just different.
yeah,
Different. Their problem solving skills will be a different set.
yes,
They won't have this hardcore, let me sit here until 3 a.m. and bash lines of code into here until it works. They'll have maybe a more analytical approach to these things, because they've got a wider and a broader sense of hey, there's this aspect of maybe user interfaces, or
yeah. It's
user
more
facing.
perhaps a holistic approach sometimes. Or
Exactly. Yeah, I think
that's also something that I found because I studied MTD, which is like I'll say 30% or so non-coding, which is,
Yeah.
like you have audio, video, all sorts of things. And later on, like even years after I finished studying, those were often the skills that I fell back on. Where it's like, hold on, I know about this, and we're
Yeah.
implementing like a MP3 something filter something. It's like, oh, I know about this because I learned. And suddenly, it's like the breadth of it counts for a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's, I mean, we see it actually right now. We have these really hardcore mathematicians that have developed this algorithm to best bring a driver to a rider in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
least amount of time.
yeah.
And they're
But
like, oh my God,
it's a
this is
beautiful
perfect.
algorithmic problem. It's like so beautiful to implement, but
But they have no idea if it's actually better than this really simple one,
yeah, yeah,
because they concentrated so much on the fact that this is the best
yeah,
that they can't really give you, they haven't been able uh, to get a feel for the holistic side of
yes,
things.
yes.
Is a
Like
rider really going to care if this thing comes a second later?
if it has this and this disadvantage because it's built in such a rigid
Yeah.
way. No, so the one thing that surprised me getting a job was that being in coding, I assumed that all the problems would be like really hard algorithmic problems.
Oh
Like
God.
we'd have like you have to implement like this sort and like, oh, if I can find a clever way to implement the sort that's like that. And in real life, it's like, no, just use a library, man. Like, why would you implement
Yeah.
sort? That's crazy. And so all of the
Yeah.
problems in coding are like 90% or whatever the problems aren't algorithmically hard. It's more
No.
about let's build a beautiful platform where we can plug in this and this and we can separate this because this part's ugly and then how do we get this data over here, and it's not like, ooh, I have to implement this hardcore this. It's
And I think coming back to, being a database reliability
yep,
engineer, my job isn't to tell a developer, you know, you're doing this wrong because you're using this really complicated query or something like that. That's really up to you, how you're going to do this. The question is more, do you have the knowledge to, as you said, separate these things out in the correct way, or are you just being really brutal and just hacking things
yeah,
in
yeah.
because that's what you learned? And this is my hammer, this is my nail. I need to bash.
Well, it's a famous quote, right? If all you have is a hammer, then everything looks
Yeah.
like a nail.
Yep. And it can it it's the same thing for almost everything in life. If all you see are algorithmic problems, then you're going to try and get these algorithmic things that you have in your brain
And there
to,
are jobs
because that's what you
like the
study.
whole thing with algorithms is there are jobs that require those, but they're like very rare. It's like more like data scientist, for example, and even
Yeah.
there, it's more about how usable is it. Like most of the coding
Yeah.
jobs are much more about can you build a good interface and can you connect with it. And apart
Yeah.
from that, it's not even so much those skills. Like to me, and this one, the most important skills are you reliable? Can you communicate?
Yes. Communication.
Well, that's about it, right? If you're reliable,
Yeah.
so if you can have a problem and you can solve it, and that doesn't mean you have to be able to solve it yourself, but that means you it's your problem. Like if someone
Yes.
asks you
Own it.
what's the status, you're like it can be
Yep.
delayed, it can be impossible, but you own it. And number two
Yep.
is the communication, that you're willing to get help, that you can talk to others, you can
You
those
can
two
be
things.
wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But as
Yeah.
long as you own the problem, it doesn't have to
Yep.
mean you're you can code it instantly or you're perfect. It's just own it. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I think 90% of the time when somebody's like, Jason, I have this very complicated question. Uh, this is in SQL.
And you're like, this
You are
config.
SQL person, right? And it's like, yeah, I have to look that up. I have
Yeah.
no idea what you're
No,
doing.
no. But then if you look it up, you can actually interpret the things that you find. And
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty. These are that's the separation. I mean,
yeah,
that's my
yeah,
métier, which
yeah.
is really hardcore database knowledge. How is this thing going to actually interact with database engines and stuff like that? How is this going to hit the disk? How is this going to read data files?
Exactly. And how do we, if we
And
need to scale it up, how can we scale it? Like, what's the
yeah,
server behind it? What can we, yeah.
and he's like, I found this actually on Stack Overflow while googling completely different problem. Yes, I have a Russian work colleague. His name is Ilya, and he is one of the greatest coders that I know.
That's awesome. That's funny on so many levels.
Yes, it really is. He recently gave up coffee.
So, okay, so I think I think we're gonna end the video here on that bombshell of giving up coffee,
Yes. Yeah.
because
No.
we could probably keep chatting forever. I don't know if anyone's still watching or interested or whatever, but it's always fun to chat.
The
So
answer is 42, by the way, for the extra credit question.
the extra credit question. So is there any last thing you want to tell the students to, I don't know, be happy or something? Or
No, I mean, enjoy your time while you're studying.
oh yeah, I can dig that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay then I will stop recording. Thank you everyone.